Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's April 11th, 2022. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by managing editor Matt Shodell as we discuss the news of the day, presented as always by LifeWallet, where the time is now to take charge of your personal health. And Matt, busy weekend, man. There's no such thing as weekends anymore in the traditional sense. It's a 7-day-a-week operation at the University of Miami now, and that means it's a 7-day operation at CaneSport. And between the transfer portal and regular recruiting and all that, a lot for us to continue to keep up with. So the website was jumping all weekend long. So anybody out there that's listening this morning that didn't get a chance to read all of our coverage over the weekend, we'll touch on some of it here on this show. But we urge you to go back and spend a few minutes and bring yourself up to speed, because there was a lot going on in Coral Gables over the weekend. Matt, let me start with a subject that I wrote a column about that's on the website for today, which is why it's pertinent for the show. And I wrote about how the Miami football program is really starting to look and feel like an NFL franchise, the way it's being run. I equated it to spring practice being literally like a training camp that you would traditionally see in the month of August in the NFL. We talked about the transfer portal being kind of like free agency and the waiver wire. You look at the way Mario Cristobal is expanding Miami's personnel department, bringing different layers of scouting in. Alonzo Highsmith primed to join the fray, presumably after the NFL draft. And you just put all of this together, the way players are being brought in, and the knowledge that means some guys are going to have to go between the end of spring practice and the start of the season in September. And you put it all together in one, big pie, I guess you could say. And it really does have the look and feel of an NFL franchise.
I mean, it's not quite the same, but they got.
Come on, buy in, Matt. Come on, I made the analogy. I wrote the column. Buy in. Don't be contrary today. Okay.
Well, here's why.
I just explain why.
I mean, look, it's great to say why, but so they brought in 8 transfers so far. They probably wound up with around 13 to 15 when it's all said and done. The reason it's not the NFL is in the NFL, you don't need rookies every single year, and in college football, obviously, that's really how you build a program. So,
of course, you need rookies every single year. You go through a draft and your top
NFL players are not there.
Fifth round picks are going to make the team.
NFL players are not there for only 3 to 5 years, right? So the bottom line, if you let me speak, the bottom line, what I'm trying to.
Okay, but that's not true either. Look up the average career in the NFL. Number one,
I understand, but you can have a player who plays in the NFL. You got it
all the time.
You can have Tom Brady as your quarterback for 10 years. You can't have that at college. Anyway, the point being, if Gary lets me get my point across, what Mario Cristobal is doing is great to win games now. So if you want to make the NFL analogy and say an NFL team is signing a ton of free agents and going over the salary cap for 1 year to win, that's what Mario Cristobal is trying to do. It's not a long-term strategy for success. Mario Cristobal knows that. You will not see this every year. This is a 1-year fix. He wants to win now. And I said it before. I didn't think it was a good idea initially, no. But now I think it is a good idea because recruits want to see wins.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, you just said it's not a formula for success. Now,
long-term success, correct.
Right, a year or two ago, I would have wholeheartedly agreed with you. You would have got no objection from me. However, in the wild, wild west age of modern-day college football, what we're seeing right now might just not be going anywhere. And here's why. Once Miami gets the depth situation right and the roster right, what's going to happen is what you're seeing at Georgia right now. Why an Amarius Mims, who was the number 2 offensive tackle in recruiting a year ago, is suddenly in the transfer portal out of Georgia. Because you start getting players backed up. And Mims goes to Georgia. He wants to play. He can't crack the starting lineup. He's got everybody around him saying, what the hell's up? You were the number 2 tackle in America. Why aren't they playing you? Blah, 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 blah. And now all of a sudden he's a malcontent and he's going in the portal. So, my point is now Georgia's got to backfill him. So, I'm not sure, because I think what will happen at the level that they're recruiting right now is Miami's going to go from being the hunter, which it clearly is right now. They are grabbing guys where they can get them, like a few guys from Oregon. Obviously, now they're trying to get this guy Mims from Georgia. They've grabbed a couple guys from West Virginia. I mean, UCLA. They're poaching a lot of different schools here in the transfer portal. Miami's going to go, once things are straight, from the hunter to the huntee. And now people will then be looking to poach Miami players, Matt. And then they're going to have to backfill through the portal for the guys they lose. So I'm not sure. I would have agreed with you a year or two ago, but the way this is evolving now, I don't think I do. I think this is here to stay.
Well, you're wrong. And you're wrong because if you look, there are exceptions to every rule, right? So right now Miami has 8 that are already here. So let's talk about the 8 they already got, okay? Henry Parrish was not going to be a feature back at Ole Miss. Frank Ladson was going to be not a number 1 top guy at Clemson this year. Logan Sagapolu was going to be was a backup when he transferred here. And John Dennis was going to be a backup. So and Jacob Lichtenstein was, he's not even going to be a starter here, right? And they got him from USC. Antonio Moultrie, he's coming from UAB. He's probably going to be a backup here. And then the only guy, and then when you do strike lightning in a bottle, like you said, if you get the Georgia kid, great. But he would have been a backup. That's why he's transferring. You get the UCLA DN because they switched systems. He wasn't going to be the rush end. He wants to be there. So he's here, which is great. That's great. And Darryl Porter would have obviously been a starter there, and they're very upset he left there. So that's the lightning in a bottle, is the Darryl Porter and Mitchell. But the point is, when you have 6 out of 8 guys that would have been backups elsewhere, you can keep building like this. But the point is, at some point, you need to get those guys that you're developing, right? And they're staying in your system, staying on your team. You're not bringing in 15 new guys every single year. They're going to be backups somewhere else, because you're not going to be the best team in the country if you're grabbing everyone's backups. If 10 out of the 15 guys you get every year are because they're backups somewhere else or unhappy somewhere else, which is generally why guys transfer, right? That to me, that's not a long-term formula for success. You say you disagree. That's just how I see it. I'm not going to lie.
Well, I'll agree that you might want the numbers to be a little lower. You'd probably prefer to not have to be taking 13, 14, 15 transfers. It would probably be better if it was more like 4 or 5. I'll agree with you on that front. But
this is a unique situation. There's nothing wrong with Mario doing this, except for the fact they're costing some 2023 to 25 through 2025 recruiting spots. That's all it's doing. It's taking away maybe 10 spots through those 3 years that they're not going to really necessarily need anyway.
We don't know that that's how it's going to play out, because there's going to be guys leave.
So it's not the end of the world. But the bigger issue for me, again, is you take guys who, and if you look at our scholarship tracker, the guys you're taking that are redshirt freshmen and sophomores, if they don't work out, it's a 1-year renewable scholarship. So you can say, listen, we got to be really good next year. Sorry, man, it didn't work out. They're not going to graduate. They're not going to get taken by any major program because they have to sit out. There's no more. It's called the one-time transfer rule for a reason. It's not a 2-time transfer rule unless they change the rules. So that's the worry I have. I don't like doing it that way. I don't think Miami has a choice. Mario Cristobal wasn't bought here to be nice to guys and to just say, okay, we'll take 5 or 10 guys and we just can't get rid of them because that would be mean, and we're just going to lose a couple of games because that's okay. It's not right to do it otherwise. No, that's not what he's here for. It's a business. So in that sense, the NFL analogy makes sense to me. It's a business. And Mario Cristobal is treating it like a business, which is great because it hasn't been the business of winning here for a long time. And to see it look a little different and give fans hope that, hey, maybe this year they'll actually be really good because they've made some major moves. We'll see how it all comes together. But, they've certainly shaken things up, right? It doesn't look like it's looked for the last 20 years at Miami. So maybe that's a good thing, even though it's a little crazy with what's going on in the portal. It just seems like the candy store analogy I keep making, He just keeps the next guy looks better than the previous guy, so just keep taking him. And who knows who else will come along in the next few weeks,
Hey, coaches talk about competition. They talk about wanting to create urgency. They talk about culture. Mario Cristobal stops practice the other day and delivers a message of urgency to his players. And words are great, but actions speak volumes. And this constant, like, there's not a practice out there that's not loaded with recruits and transfer prospects. And the players know what's going on. They know these guys are there looking to take their jobs and stuff. And it creates an urgency, and you get guys playing hard and that want to stick and want to be there. Guys like Jafari Harvey, who we keep hearing stories about the effort level that he's bringing to practice. Now, you would like for that effort level to not be standing out the way that it is, but that maybe is the next step in the equation, where you get everybody playing like Jafari Harvey is playing right now. But so anyway, so I wrote about all of these different things in a column for the website today. I hope you guys enjoy it. You could find it there this morning. Now, talking about the transfers and the guys coming in and all that, Miami got a commitment Saturday night from John Dennis, who was initially going to commit Sunday, and then on impulse decided, you know what, why wait? I know what I'm doing. And about 8 o'clock Saturday night decides that he's going to commit. Of course, Matt and I were each out to dinner. I mean, but we got it done. We got the story up on the website, and spoke to John and got his input on why he was transferring and that sort of thing. And Matt, you talk about how John Dennis was a backup at Oregon, and that's true. He had some injury issues the first couple of years, but he's from South Florida. He was considered a top offensive line prospect when he went to Oregon, and I think they're bringing him here with the belief that this year might be a transition year, but after this year, that this is a guy that can start for 2-3 years.
I really think he can start at center this year. I don't really see him starting at guard necessarily, but he says he can play center, and I don't know that Oregon really gave him that much of a look at center. But he's got a physicality at center that the other centers don't have, and there's really no depth at center right now. You saw in the last scrimmage they pulled Lawrence Seymour out. They threw in Ryan Rodriguez, and even with his red, we weren't there, but this is what we heard. Even with his red non-contact jersey, they're like, "This Lawrence Seymour is not getting it done, man. Rodriguez, you're in." And they put Rodriguez in for the second team, and that was it. And he did fine, even in his red jersey. He was cleared. It was just a protective thing in the red jersey. Obviously, he couldn't have been out there otherwise. But it just shows you there's a real depth problem at center, and maybe this could be the answer. Again, I don't have a problem with backups at other places transferring to Miami, because if they're better than what you have here, I mean, you sort of have to do it, right? And if this offensive
it's
line,
sad for the kids that are going to have to leave, but
listen, other conferences that have really good offensive lines, their backups are better than Miami starters a lot of times. I mean, on the offensive line, this is not a real standout Miami offensive line.
Example: if Amarius Mims from Georgia comes to Miami, and he's picking between Miami and Florida State, if he comes to Miami, he was a backup at Georgia. He walks in here and is a starter immediately. There's no question about it. I mean, it's probably on the right side. If I were Zion Nelson, I wouldn't get too comfortable over there on the left either. This guy is elite. This guy is going to be an NFL, probably first-round draft pick. He could play at either tackle position, so they can go left or right with him wherever they feel. It's going to become a Zion Nelson better than DJ Scaife is Zion Nelson on the left side better than DJ Scaife on the right side. That's essentially the decision and what it's going to boil down to. Nobody can get too comfortable, and that's exactly what the coaches want. They want everybody feeling uncomfortable. They want everybody working to their max. They want everybody pushing themselves to their limits, and being able to bring these guys in, it sends that kind of message.
I'm not going to disagree with you, of course.
Oh,
of course.
How about that? You're not going to disagree with me.
It's obvious. I mean, you stated the obvious. It's like saying...
I say the obvious all the time, but you disagree.
I mean, it's like saying I had green beans for dinner and they were green. Like, yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that. My green beans were green.
All right, so Mims was a backup at Georgia, and he was looking, it was looking like he was going to be a backup again this year, and that didn't meet his satisfaction. That's why he's going in the portal. So he exits spring practice with a week or so left and puts himself in the portal. Georgia wanted to make sure he didn't go to an SEC school, so there was some There was some debate and issues there. I mean, Alabama and Florida were very interested in trying to get him.
Well, he missed the deadline on that. So
yeah,
well,
right. So it's all working itself out now. This is a Miami-Florida State battle, and we'll see what happens. I think Miami's got a real good shot there. But back to John Dennis. I think this is a guy that could start 3 years for the Hurricanes, and that to me that's a quality pickup that supersedes this concept that you brought up earlier, which I said a year or so ago I might have agreed with you, and that is that you can't build through the transfer portal. If you're getting guys that will start for you for 2-3 years, you can build through the transfer portal. And there's a pattern developing here in that a lot of these transfers are young kids, Matt.
Yeah, of course, you're assuming everything works out like you always do, and he starts 3 years. Great. What if he's not that great? What if he doesn't start 3 years? Who knows what's going to happen? He's been hurt. He's been hurt. Who knows if he's constantly getting hurt? So listen, it's great to look at the optimistic side. The other side of the coin is you signed the 5-star offensive lineman that Mario was signing at Oregon. You build up roster depth using that system. They know that Alex Mirabal and Mario Cristobal are the two best offensive line coaches in the country. They're not going to leave. So if you just look at offensive line, like that's how I'd build my offensive line for the long term, not getting backups that you recruited to Oregon, guys with injury histories, whatever. That's how I would build my offensive line for the long term. You can go ahead with your little fantasy land about how John Dennis is going to be the greatest player ever for the next 3 years, and so all the other transfers they get. Maybe they will. I'm not going to say they won't, but like that's just how I personally would do it because I'm old school, I guess.
Okay, but I can only analyze what's right in front of me. And right now, what's right in front of me is when John Dennis walks on campus, he is going to be better than what is there, maybe even better than Ja'Kai Clark. Okay, that's to be determined. We will see. But I will agree with you that if Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal, who've got like 50 offensive line offers out right now for this recruiting class, if they recruit the way they want to recruit, I will agree with you that it is not inconceivable that they will bring in a player better than John Dennis, who will go back to being a backup, who will go back to being unhappy.
No team's going to take a guy who has to sit out a year and take a roster spot anymore when they could grab some other guy equally good probably out of the portal.
Yeah, it's highly possible that at some point in time they could recruit somebody better than him. I mean, you're right in that regard.
That's the goal. I mean, you always want to get better. So listen, there's two trains of thought, right? The way the best teams in the country do it is through recruiting. And if you're going to do what most people do, which is try to copy what the best are doing, what Alabama and Ohio State and Georgia are doing, they're getting 5-star and 4-star prospects. They're doing due diligence. They're doing what everyone's always done, right? You're talking to the guidance counselors, you're talking to the coaches, you're talking to the janitors, you're talking to the parents, you're talking to the brothers, you're talking to the friends. You're watching their film, you're breaking them down, you're bringing them for visits, and then you say, this 5-star and 4-star is a real deal. We want him, and you end up getting him. You recruit him the right way, and you get him. And he's a starter by year 2 or year 3, and he's a starter for 2 or 3 years. And the other people that came in with him and are a year above him and are a year above that, that's how you build your program. Now, the way Mario Cristobal is doing it right now for this year is saying, oh my gosh, we don't have what Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia have, so we have to do something different. We're going to try to do it by getting basically guys that have been really good recruits that have a really big upside, but haven't really emerged at their programs, except for a couple of guys that we already talked about that obviously were playmakers elsewhere. And then we're going to hope to catch lightning in a bottle. And that can work. That can work in the short term. But again, I disagree with you long term. You can't do this every year. You can't take even 10 guys every year out of the portal. I know 7 of them are free, but you take 10 out of the portal every year that are freshmen and sophomore, you're talking about 30 to 40 roster spots within a 5-year span that can't be recruits. And out of 85 kids, that's almost 40% of the roster that aren't your own recruits, that are basically mostly backups from elsewhere you're trying to hope to strike lightning with. And Mario Cristobal being such a great recruiter and this staff being such great recruiters, I find that a disservice to the program because they can do it the way Alabama and Ohio State and Georgia do it. They don't have to, quote unquote, go this backwards way of doing it. Like they can do it the way the best teams in the country are doing it and be successful. So this is a 1-year fix to me. This is not going to ever happen again here, in my opinion.
Well, we'll see, but it goes against your point that they need to win to recruit the way they want to recruit.
How does that go against my point?
To make
That's exactly
the roster.
What I'm saying. It's a 1-year fix.
They're trying to fortify the roster so they can win this year. And it's not going to be national championships. Don't set everybody out there listening, do not set your expectations that they're going to be in the college
what
football playoff.
What am I not making clear to you, Gary? Because all I said is they need to win now. It's a one-year fix. Win this year, the recruits come, and then you're on a roll. Like, what did I not say that's not clear?
Well, no, I agree, but you've also been saying this for several years, and some of the best players in the program have come from the portal, unfortunately. So that's why it's been working in that regard. So they keep dipping. But yeah, I mean, listen, when you have to get this many transfers, Matt is right. It means you got so many holes. But we already know that. We know there's a lot of holes. And Mario's just trying to make the team as good as he can this year. He knows what the big picture is. He knows how much better Miami needs to get to be Miami again. But right now, it's like, can we get Miami respectable? Can we be a 9-10 win team in 2022, get to a decent bowl game, compete for the Coastal Division title, maybe make the ACC title game?
And by the way, let me be clear. Top programs do take 4 or 5 transfers a year. They're not taking 10 or 15. Miami should still be taking those 4 or 5. You identify 3 or 4 spots. You could take a quarterback transfer. Top programs have done that and won with top quarterback transfers for a year. There's nothing wrong.
I agree,
but what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you can't take 10 to 15 and wind up with 40 transfers on your roster over a 5-year span. That's what I'm trying to explain.
But you can't be planning to take 3 or 4, and somebody can come poach 5 guys from you, and now you got to take 9 or 10.
No, you don't. Because the way you could take 25 recruits a year. Right now, they can't even take 25 recruits if they want to without cutting 25 kids, right? Because they're going to be at 85, only have 8 kids graduating. They have 7 free transfers. You can't do it. So the point is, the less transfers you take, the more recruits you can take. Because now the 25, 85 with the 7 free transfers, it's shaking up all the math, right? So if you're taking those 4 or 5 transfers a year, that's going to be 4 or 5 less recruits you're taking a year in general. You're going to end up with about 20 recruits a class instead of 24 or 25. Because think about it over a 4-year span, right? 25 times 4 is 100. You only have 85 spots. So you're never going to be at that 25 taking transfers unless you have a really big senior class, which never happens anymore. So there's really no issue with that, in my opinion.
All right. So there was, like I said, a ton of recruiting that went on this weekend, and we're constantly covering that. There's several stories on the website that we'll touch on here in a moment. There'll be many more tomorrow. But first, before we talk recruiting, let's hear from our friends at LifeWallet.
We here at LifeWallet take security very seriously. Our data security team is working constantly to make sure that your data is not accessed by anybody who you don't authorize.
Hey, what's up, man?
Yeah, I'm
Excuse me, sir. Thank you.
I have a conversation, and he's thinking about it, and I'll be talking to CC. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
We use leading technology standards like biometric data to make sure that only you have access to your data and your identity is protected. LifeWallet gives you access to your entire medical history and information at the touch of your finger, so that it can save you time and can save your life.
Data transfer complete.
All right, let's talk a little recruiting, Matt. Obviously, so much activity. It would be impossible for us to talk and write about every single kid that steps foot on campus. There's so many of them. I think at one point over the weekend, I think it was Saturday, I counted that there were 20 kids on campus that we knew about, okay, which means there probably were 30 or 40 that were there at one given time in the building, getting tours, meeting with coaches. Absolutely, the logistics that have to be going into all of this is just unbelievable. I mean, it's unprecedented at Miami. I mean, we've been doing this for a long time. We've never seen anything like this with recruiting at this degree and numbers and magnitude and all that. So mad applause to all the guys behind the scenes at Miami that are making all of this run so smoothly, because it is running smoothly, and they are having an incredible success rate, Matt. Not necessarily, we're not seeing a million commitments yet, But what we are seeing is a lot of great reviews on these visits, kids enjoying being there, kids coming back over and over again, all the things that you want that hopefully will lead to commits here in the near future, probably as you get later in the spring and the visits wrap up.
Yeah, I know fans get antsy when there's a lot of kids that visit and you don't get commitments, but that's been the case all spring. It's okay because, truth be told, Miami would get commitments on these visits in the past years, but they weren't commitments from 4-star and 5-star guys that every top program in the country wants. And this staff is showing a willingness to wait. They're not saying, and they're also not pressuring kids. In the past, literally coaches would beg for commitments. I don't understand why. Because all that's doing is pressuring kids to commit who may not have wanted to commit.
And then you get a million decommitments.
Right. That's why you get decommitments. And a lot of recruits they're 16, 17-year-old kids, basically, who, it's their first time doing this, obviously. And a lot of them are not necessarily eager to say no to a coach that they respect and want to keep a relationship with. So this coaching staff's doing it the right way. They're fantastic coaches, fantastic recruiters. They understand that it's okay to have no commitments in the spring if that's what happens. As long as you stick by the relationships you're building with the recruits and are honest with the recruits and you feel they're honest with you and you know where you stand with them, then they should know what they're going to end up getting on signing day in December as this thing goes forward. There's no need to get a ton of recruits now that are going to commit and just want to decommitting if, God forbid, Miami loses a couple of games in the fall. You have to have that relationship, know what's going on, and have the right kids that are committed to the program for the right reasons.
All right, so a whole bunch of visits over the weekend. We've got stories on some of them. Reuben Bain, who continues to have a heavy flirtation with Alabama. They were able to get him on campus this weekend. That was significant. Jeremiah Smith, Mazeo Bennett, Jalen Hayward, Jalen Smith, Kenton Kirkland, a kid who drove 10 hours overnight from South Carolina to visit Miami on Saturday and be there in the morning when the coaches showed up. An amazing story. You'll enjoy that one. So we've got all those stories on the website. Other stories this morning as it pertains to recruiting. We got a story on 2025 recruit DJ Pickett. He's got over 25 offers already. He's a 2025 kid. Miami's his dream school. We've got a story on that. A story on tight end Dylan Wade, who passed through this weekend, picked up an offer from Stephen Field. And a story on 4-star offensive lineman Monroe Freeling, who visited this spring and has now decided that the Hurricanes are going to get an official visit here down the road. So we've got that on the website. We've got stories on a bunch of the visits. We'll be continuing to hammer it all through the day today. So there'll be more and more coming your way on recruiting, which is really in high gear at Miami right now. All right, Matt, and one last thing I wanted to touch on, the UM baseball team. A few weeks ago, the message boards were sizzling when it came to baseball. People were talking about how they wanted Gino DiMare replaced, yada, yada, yada. Well, now the Miami baseball team's the hottest team in the country. They've won 12 straight games. They swept Virginia this weekend, which was ranked number 3 in the country coming into the series. And Matt, there's no talk placing Gino now. This team's playing great ball.
It's pretty amazing. The third straight sweep. Ever since Mario Cristobal was hired, for some reason the basketball
athletic department's picking up its game.
Exactly. They're like, we got to keep up. We can't let the football team have all the glory. So the basketball team makes the Elite Eight. Baseball team is going to probably be in the top 5 now. Look, I haven't been following. I think tennis is doing okay too, right? And badminton and what else do we got going on? I think they got don't they have some sort of, what's that, Harry Potter sports? Don't they have one of those club sports going on too?
And how about, let's not forget basketball, which now has the street cred from making the Elite Eight. Kansas State guard Nigel Pack was on campus this weekend on an official visit. We haven't been able to get word yet on how that went, but he was on campus over the weekend. He's one of the top guys in the transfer portal for basketball. And Jim Larry.
By the way, I'm pretty sure the baseball team's won 13 in a row. I know it's hard to keep track, Gary. I know you're not a math guy.
Yeah,
it's hard to add up that high. I know that. You only have 10 fingers. But
I thought it was 12, but that admittedly was off the top of my head. So, yeah.
Grow a few extra fingers, then you can just count it next time.
But anyway, the bottom line is they're playing great. and no talk about replacing Gino Damari. All right, so great things going on at the U in every sport. It's a festival of happiness right now for the Miami Hurricanes, and we will continue to bring you all the coverage on all these fronts. We thank you so much for joining us this morning on Good Morning CaneSport. For Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. You guys all make sure you have a great day. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.